Welcome to the channel. This video is an introduction to a number of short series that I intend to make over the next couple of months, where I'm going to be learning Crusader Kings III. For that reason, there is absolutely no gameplay in this video whatsoever. If you want to get into the first part of the first playthrough, that separate video will be released exactly the same time as this one. If any of you decided to remain, welcome. This introduction will consist of 3 parts. In the first part, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the challenge of learning Paradox games, especially when you come to a game that's been out for several years. I will then move on and talk about the objective of these Let's Learn series. Then I'll give a quick overview of the settings button down here, and then we'll go through onto the character screen, and I'll just give you an overview of the character selection process. Now, so this is getting into the first part. Well, it's probably don't need to tell many people about the challenge of learning Paradox games, even if you buy it on day one like I did Crusader Kings 3. If you come late like I did with EU4 and Crusader Kings 2, there is an even bigger challenge. In fact, the already steep learning curve actually can go exponential. And the reason for that is that Paradox routinely release regular DLC, and every DLC is always accompanied with a free DLC, which changes the base game. So even if you buy the base game after several years and you start to learn how to play it, and then if you do what I did when I started to try and learn EU4, you go out on YouTube and you look for a tutorial, and you see someone doing a tutorial and you say, this doesn't even look remotely like what I'm looking at on my screen. And that increases the challenge even more. And I'll be honest, I did struggle through with EU4 using a combination of the base game and a number of DLCs which were regarded as essential, which brought me sufficiently in line to what people were currently playing for me to understand the game. But I'll be honest, I never really felt I was able to engage completely with the game, and at best I was probably an average player, though I'm getting very rusty now. I haven't played EU4 now for about 18 months, 2 years. And then I moved on to Crusader Kings 2 because I saw it available in a sale, which was about 75% off for the base game and the majority of all the DLC. So then I thought, right, I've cracked it. I'm going to buy the base game and all the DLC, and I'm going to learn to the current level. It completely blew my mind. I just couldn't get my head around all the mechanics. And I got to the point where I was starting to get very frustrated because I wasn't getting the immersion. And I think the problem was just trying to remember all the different menus and the things you had to do. Luckily, when I was getting to the point where I was getting ready to rage quit forever, Crusader Kings 3 was announced. So I thought, right, I'm going to get in on the base with Crusader Kings 3. And when it comes out, I'm going to learn the game and I'm going to start playing it on the channel. And I had several attempts at trying to learn how to play, and then Royal Court was announced, and I thought, well, right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait for Royal Court to come out, and then I'll learn to play the game. So Royal Court was delayed for understandable reasons due to the worldwide events that's been going on for the last 2 years. Finally, Royal Court's come out, and I've decided that I'm going to really get down and learn Crusader Kings 3 before the next DLC comes out. What I did about 2 weeks ago, I started looking at the game, refreshing my memory of the little bit that I did learn. I did the tutorial, and then I got to the point where I thought, right, I'm now in a position to actually put a playthrough on the channel. And I actually started recording that playthrough, and it didn't go very well. There was too much fiddling around with the menus. So then my next thought was, right, I'm going to make a tutorial, and we're going to play the basic mechanics through, and I'm going to do it in a tutorial format, which is a bit slower than a normal playthrough, and I won't be pretending that I'm an expert. One of the problems with Paradox games is tutorials date incredibly quickly because of this process of releasing a free DLC with the DLC. So then you've got a 2-step tutorial. So you can do just the base game with the free DLC, or do you do the base game and all the DLC? And then I sat down and thought, well, maybe I just need to learn the mechanics. So I got to the point where I thought, well, the only way I'm going to learn this game is to actually sit down and do a series of short playthroughs. When I'm learning a game, I always record the game so I can actually go back and review what I've done. And I actually started doing that on the first character, which will allow me to learn the base mechanics thoroughly. And I thought, well, if I'm doing that, why don't I just make a Let's Learn series and share my learning experience with you guys? That also gives you an opportunity to post comments and point out where I go wrong. And then for anyone who's not sure of my attitude to comments is I never take offense. I always take everything that's posted positively. And therefore, I'm hoping that by sharing my learning experience with you guys, you can ask questions and hopefully I'll be able to try and explain it. And of course, you can point out where I've gone wrong. And more importantly, if I have a complete disaster, what I'll do is go back and restart, and we'll keep applying it as part of that learning process. Now, that leads me into what I mean by a number of short series. And the way I'm approaching this is that we're going to do a short series learning the basics of the game in very simple mode, which would probably be akin to the way I play strategy. Then we're going to move on to another character and possibly learn about being a king and also being a vassal. And then we've got the HRE and cultures, converting cultures, and the list is endless. So the idea is to build up a series of short playthroughs where I'm building up my experience and expanding into the different elements of the game. And hopefully this will make sense. If you guys got any suggestions about characters to learn specific mechanics, that would be appreciated. Now, so the next thing I want to talk about is the settings tab down here. Now this tab applies to all your games in CK3. So if you're playing multiple characters, these settings always apply. And the first thing I want to talk about is the GUI scaling. Now I've kind of tried different settings to get a balance, and what I'll say, guys, if you think it's too the text is too small, tell me and I'll increase it. If you think the screen's too crowded, I'll decrease it. And the next thing I want to go is into in-game settings. Now the tooltip mode, if you watch virtually any tutorial now, the first recommendation is that you change this from timer lock to action lock. And the reason for that is that if you have it on timer lock, when the drop down menu appears, you've got to wait several seconds before you can move into it like that. But with an action lock, you press the center mouse button, that locks it. And what that means is you can then go in and open another sub menu, because one of the in-game information system has many levels of embedded sub menus, so you can keep reading down. And you'll be seeing more of that as we go forward. Now the next one is more of a personal setting. This is mousepad. Now if any of you guys follow my Workers and Resources Soviet Republic series, you'll be aware that I can be a bit sketchy with my mouse, and with CK3 most of the menus are on the edge of the screen, and I found that by going over sometimes the map underneath would move due to the pan setting. So I've actually disabled this, and what I have to be doing is using the WASD keys to move around the screen. And then down the bottom here, I've turned off nudity for obvious reasons. YouTube just gets very uppity about nudity, and I don't want to have to blur things out. The other thing I will say is that I've left on show graphic diseases and injuries. A little bit wary about showing it because some of the pictures are a little bit gruesome. And if you don't like it, feel free to tell me, and what I'll do is I'll switch this off, because personally, one way or the other, doesn't particularly bother me that much. That is, I think, all we need to do with this menu. And what I'm going to do now is we're just going to click new. Oh, I'll just show you quickly here. This is King Sved of Denmark. I've been playing this a little bit, and this little symbol here means I've been playing it in Iron Man mode. Although we probably won't play in Iron Man mode with this series, so that I can actually drop saves. And we're going to play a new game. And what this does is it brings you through into the character select screen. Now, currently, and I emphasize the word currently, there's two start dates in the game. One is 867 and the other one is 1066. And these tabs along the top give you suggested starts. And now one thing I do want to say is when it says easy, medium, this doesn't mean that you're changing the actual game difficulty. What these are is indicators of the complexity of the mechanics of the game. So for example, Petty King Murchad is the character we're going to be playing. He's the character that's in the tutorial, which is in the top right hand side here. The reason I've chosen him is the fact that Ireland is referred to in CK2 as Noob Island, and for learning the basic mechanics, Ireland is the best place to be, because the first playthrough will be just to form the Kingdom of Ireland. Once we form the Kingdom of Ireland, we will stop. and that will be it, because hopefully by then we'll have a fairly good grounding in the base mechanics. And for any of you die-hard strategy players, Ireland is one of the good places to start shaking off playing as a strategy game. It's not a strategy game, it's a character-based game. So it's a very good fun play area to work on. It's also worth noting, if you don't want to play the tutorial character, that most of the characters in Ireland are available to be played. And in fact, every character on the map is available to be played. So if you don't want to create Ireland with the tutorial character, just go in on the menu down here. I'll show you in a minute, and you can choose any other character. And now the Duke of Bohemia over here is it says it's an easy start, and it's in some ways it's the next step up from learning the basics. When you play Bohemia, you're starting to learn a little bit more about managing large numbers of vassals and dealing with kings around you. And so that's the difference, where if you start coming down to these levels here, you can see here you've got Duke Matilda here. This is a female character, so this is a character you want to play if you want to learn about playing as a female character and the complications of that. Rather than keep going on about this, I'll just show you the other characters. This is, I think these are the Norse characters, and you've got Ivar the Boneless up here, and of course this is the 867 start. You've got the Great Adventures. I think these are the Vikings. You've got Jarl Heston down here. He's one of the more powerful starts. Again, the reason he's easy, he's got lots of troops. Rurik Runkin is a good start for the Norse. Again, we'll be playing probably this guy in a later playthrough. And then down here we got the Mongols, and we got that there. We got the Carolingians here. You see, all these are medium, because to play these characters, you've really got to start getting an idea of vassalization and all the other things to do with culture. Fate of England is quite interesting. Malcolm of Scotland. I've got a feeling that Malcolm of Scotland might be the second playthrough, because he's in a relatively good place to learn the mechanics of being a king. And of course that will open up an opportunity to start looking at the Royal Court DLC, because you can't get access to the Royal Court until you're either a king or an emperor. And the next one here was one we've just looked at, and then this one here will probably be the subject of another playthrough we'll be doing, because we'll be playing King Alfonso VI, because this is the ideal area to learn the intrigue aspect of the game, which is murdering and schemes and plots. This is one of the elements of Crusader Kings. There's so many different ways you can accomplish your goals. It's not all about hacking and slashing your way across the map. Although we are going to be playing Petty King Merchant, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come down here and load through, and I'll show you the way you can select any player on the map. So what we got here now is we've got any player here. What you can do is zoom in. You can play any playable characters. So if you want to play Kaiser Henrik the IV of the Holy Roman Empire, feel free to have a go. What I would say is this is probably one of the most advanced mechanics in the game, so if you haven't got a firm grounding in all the other mechanics, this could be a very tough campaign for a new player. What you can do is move in here. We'll just click here. This is our King Merchant of Munster. And of course up here we got King, if we click on here, we can play King Malcolm. So even the suggested characters of the previous screen are still available here. And as I said, you can play anywhere on the map. If I zoom out right out, and if you've got a kind of inclination towards the east, which is somewhere where I will definitely be going, but I want to save most of these campaigns for once I've got a good working knowledge of the game. Although over here you've got, I think it's Pagan is a good early start for a new player as well. Maybe we'll come out here and do that one as well. As I'm open to suggestions for learning campaigns, so feel free to chuck them in the comments. But of course we're going to be playing this one here, and as an example, if you don't want to play King Merchant, another good start is actually this guy, Earl Murchad MacDimart of Dublin. He's got a slightly unusual start because his father is, he doesn't actually show here, is in Leinster here, and he's very old, so when he dies you are his heir, so therefore you can gather these two counties together very quickly. Another interesting challenge is you can play the Petty King of Connaught, and of course all the other ones are available as well, depending with varying levels of difficulty. But we're going to be playing this one. The reason I want to play this one is that it ties in with the tutorial, and I can reference to what the tutorial talks about while I'm actually playing this series. Now, the other thing you can do is change the game rules, and there's a whole list of game rules down here, and I'll be completely honest, I've got no real idea about what some of them, I can guess what some of these are, but I'm not going to change them. And you've actually, for the brave, you've actually got a difficulty setting. You go very easy, easy, and normal. What I will say, it's similar to Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. If you're learning the game, you're far better off just getting in and getting your feet wet, because easy and very easy may seem a good way forward, but I think you're just far better off playing normal and just making the mistakes. And of course, what you've got up here is Iron Man mode. Now, what it says there is if you want to get the achievements, you've actually got to switch Iron Man mode on. Now, I will be playing Iron Man later on, but for the purposes of these Let's Learn series and the fact that I need to be able to save from time to time, because what I might do is, if I'm going to do something a bit dodgy, I might save the game, give it a go, if it all falls back, and then we'll go back and reload and take it from a different situation. If you're not sure or understand the mechanics, especially when you're in a situation that the game asks you to change, say, culture or something like that, it pays to be in a position where you can actually save the game and go back if it all goes wrong because you misunderstood what it was actually trying to tell you. Another example of that is playing around with the succession laws, but that is something where we will be looking going forward. And of course, if you really want to get into multiplayer, you can go down here. You've also got a random character option here, which will basically press that and the game will select a character completely. And I think I need to stop now, because the next step now is just to come down here, press start, and we'll load into the map. But that will be the subject of the next video. Hope you enjoyed this introduction. What I will say is feel free to put some comments if you've got any suggestions on characters to play or things you would like to see as part of this Let's Learn. Feel free to chuck it in the comments of the video. We'll have a chat about it, discuss it. And I want to finish by emphasizing is, if you see me doing things wrong, tell me. I will not take offense. I will not get upset. And also alternatives. I mean, especially when we get into some of the more complex mechanics like succession. If you think I'm getting the succession wrong, tell me. I say I will never take offense. But until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.